AAT Birds Weekly Report is the Eagle news, notes, and analysis you need. All about the birds. It's all birds, all the time.
Welcome to the AT Birds Weekly Report. We have a couple things to talk about. Isn't a whole heck of a lot, but Eagles made a little bit of news here. It gave us something to talk about. I don't have to come up with my sort of fun shows, that as I like to call them. But Eagles made a move. We knew that. A couple different things happened here. The post-June 1st cuts, basically the cap cleared on some of those guys, Bradbury and Slay. The BG retirement papers were put in there. He's on the reserve retired list, so that comes into play as well. The first thing I want to talk about here is the Bryce Huff trade. Happened last Friday. Now, again, couldn't be finalized until June 2nd because of implications in terms of the cap and everything like that. He had to pass a physical. All that stuff is done. Eagles were able to get a fifth-round pick, a conditional fifth-round pick, all depending, of course. We don't know what the parameters of that is yet, but can become a fourth, which leads me to this, Chip. This is Howie saying, I made terrible decision. I screwed up, which, hey, sometimes you can't.
We kind of knew that, though.
Listen, I think we knew it once you saw in the Super Bowl he was a healthy scratch. When you have a guy that you paid $51 million, you just signed him to a 3-year, $51 million deal, and he's a healthy scratch in the Super Bowl, one of the biggest game of the year. All signs pointed towards that. And then, of course, he was absent in OTAs. They were voluntary. But, again, that kind of shows you a little bit of what they thought of him. And, signing all these edge rushers in terms of Azeez Ojulari and Josh Uche and, drafting APR late. Like, the writing was on the wall. It's just you needed somebody to be able to take him. And San Francisco becomes the team because Robert Saleh, who was his head coach in the New York Jets, and of course that's the team he broke out with and everything in what the system they run. To me, it's just he wasn't a fit. What he ran, it's kind of like we're back years ago when the Eagles had Jason Babin. Now, Jason Babin did fantastic with the Eagles, had all these sacks and everything like that. He went somewhere else, was nowhere close to the production. Bryce Huff is a system type of player, and this just isn't the system for him because, one, defensive ends and edge rushers in this system need to learn how to play the run. That's what Vic asks for them to do. You have to be able to set the edge. You have to be able to play the run, and Huff just isn't that type of player. And even when he was on pass rush downs, most of the time you saw him tripping and falling and on the ground. It just nothing. And it could have been his enthusiasm too. Didn't really want to play that way. Didn't want to learn certain things and just kind of took the life out of him a little bit and playing. And of course the injuries didn't help him, the hand injury and the surgery and all this other stuff. But to me, to get what they got out of that, to add to the plethora of picks, which we will get to shortly, because I have something to talk about with that. But Chip, what's your kind of feeling? I know we've talked time and time again about him, but I know what your feeling is on it, but just what are your thoughts on the way it went down and what they were able to eventually get for him?
I mean, here's my thing with Huff. I was never really crazy about the move. I thought it was too much of an overcorrect from the Hassan Reddick situation. It was a situation where they're like, oh, we wanted Hassan Reddick, but we want him at a discounted price, so we're going to let Hassan Reddick walk, where he ended up having the season that he did or didn't with the Jets.
And of course, he wasn't in OTAs for the Bucs. I'm not sure what's going on.
There's something going on with Hassan Reddick. That's neither here nor there. They tried to replace it with the Walmart version of Hassan Reddick. And I said that when we made this move. I don't know if you remember that, but you can go to the files. I didn't think the move was good then. And then for him to be as completely ineffective as he was, did you say Jason Babb? Was that the guy who registered exactly 0 stats like the whole season? No, who was that a couple years ago?
That was Ryan Kerrigan.
Yeah, it's Ryan Kerrigan all over again.
I'm talking Jason Babin. In fact, back in I believe it was late 2009s into like 2010 area, he had a monster season with the Eagles. So back in 2011, he had 18 sacks for the Eagles after having 12 and a half sacks with Tennessee when Jim Washburn at the time was his coordinator, came to the Eagles then, and they signed him, and he had 30 and a half sacks in 2 seasons. And then his other 10 seasons, he had a combined 34 sacks. So he averaged 34 sacks in his NFL career outside of those 2 seasons. So kind of shows you. And again, he played in 2012 and had 5.5 sacks. So if you even take that, makes it even less of what kind of player. So essentially, sometimes some guys, they just fit systems, and that's kind of what Huff is. He is a wide 9 type of player, like what Jason Babin was, and that's just what he is.
He was never effective. And like you said, for him to be a healthy scratch in the Super Bowl for a Brandon Graham who, let's be very honest, it was a feel-good move. Like, we would rather have a player who may or may not be able to play than Bryce Huff on the field.
Yeah. If Brandon Graham wasn't healthy and had to sit out and wasn't able to come back, yeah, Bryce Huff would have been elevated, would have been active. I'm not sure he would have played. Maybe he probably would have played because they were blowing out the Chiefs by so much. But still, it's just the writing was on the wall, and we saw it.
Yeah, it was a situation where Howie got whatever he could for his mistake. You know, I really think that what we have learned with the Eagles over the years is we can't just fill spots with players, right? They need to be the right players. You know, we saw that with the super failed dream team all those years ago. We saw that with Nnamdi Asomugha. We saw that with DeMarco Murray. We saw that with, you take your pick. They need to be the right guys for this organization. And Bryce Huff just being a comparable player to Hassan Reddick. No, you needed to keep Hassan Reddick. I think if you paid Hassan Reddick the way that we needed to, I don't think Hassan Reddick deals with all the things that he does. And we're not having this conversation about Bryce Huff. But again, it was a failed experiment. I'm glad they didn't double down and triple down and, give him some long extension before he even played that. It kind of goes to the fact of Howie once again saying, no, these 1-year prove-it deals work. He didn't prove it. Yeah. I know he was on a longer deal than that. I get it, but you get what I'm saying.
At times Howie is too reliant on, waiting it out and stuff like that. A lot of the time with draft picks and younger players, but he's done this before. Because when you look at when he got back into the fold after Chip Kelly left in 2015 and 2016, what did he do? He went and traded Kiko Alonso, traded Byron Maxwell, got rid of DeMarco Murray, was able to maneuver himself to get up to get the quarterback that they wanted in Carson Wentz. And, he's cutting his losses now and getting something out of it. And because if you wait any longer, you're not going to get anything. You're just going to have to cut them and just eat it. So he was able to get a compensatory 5th that could turn into a 4th. And it gives you, I believe they have 12 or 13 picks next year. And to me, they're not taking all those players. They're using those picks, whether it's adding a veteran edge or trading for something else of need or a young player who potentially is on their rookie deal that's kind of fallen a little bit out of favor, potentially trading for someone like that. So there's optionality. And I think that's one thing. I think the Eagles probably will add an edge. Just my opinion on it. I think they will. I think first they want to kind of see what they have in the room, but I wouldn't be surprised if they added a veteran, whether it's some guys out there like a Jadeveon Clowney, because, he can play the run. He's a very good run player. He can, he can get after the quarterback. He's a veteran there. He's not super old. He's 30 years. I think he's 30 years old. Zadarius Smith, who played with the Lions last year. I think he's 30 years old or 31. So there's some guys out there that I just don't think that they're going to make a splash like a Trey Hendrickson or a TJ Watt or try to go after some of that and give up tons of capital, because the main thing of what they want to do is they want to keep the youth flowing, essentially.
Yep.
With the draft picks and stuff. And they have that, whether or not they take a few of those picks and they move up in the second round, they move up higher to get a player of value or whatever it may be, but they want to be young. They're one of the youngest defenses last year. And, they have ascending players in Jalen Carter. Jordan Davis has slimmed down. He's looking good in OTAs here. You have Quinion and Cooper and Reed, and you have all these guys, the draft picks and Campbell and Makuba. So you have all these young players. On the offensive side of the ball is a little bit more of a veteran group. But again, there are still some young players, and they're not an overly old group. But the team is there, and they're there to keep getting younger and keep rebuilding. And they're not want to fall into the trap that they've had in years past where they made some bad decisions in the draft. They didn't have as many picks as they had wanted, making trades for players that may have not have worked out, giving up tons of draft capital. So there's some differences, different things there. But to me, I think you could add an edge, a veteran edge. We'll see come into the summertime here. But
yeah,
I think what they did was absolutely outstanding, getting rid of that player. And yes, you eat $16 million in dead money next year, but you're able to rid yourself of the player and get something of value out of it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a shame it didn't work out. It would have been cool if it had it, but that's why there's all the organizations in the NFL. Hopefully, not against the Eagles, but hopefully he finds some success elsewhere. But I'm not heartbroken about it. And, at some point we have to start to develop all this young talent that we have on our roster. So, you saw, I'm not saying that Jalix Hunt is the answer, but you saw a lot of growth over the course of the season in a player like Jalix Hunt. So why not give him a little bit of a wide berth to see if he really can take that next additional step?
Yeah, you want to see some of these young players, if they can ascend, like a Nolan Smith after, I believe they said after week 6 or 8, had like 10.5 sacks, including the playoffs and the Super Bowl. So, he really stepped up, especially after the Brandon Graham absence. He really stepped up in that role and what he was doing there on the defensive side of the ball. But like another thing too that I think about, when you look at the free agency of last year, this kind of goes like on the side, like not really thinking about a big dud, that a big contract, like a 3 years, $51 million, and the player not really doing anything at all, going kind of to the wayside because, one, you won the Super Bowl, but two, when you sign Saquon Barkley and Zach Bond, who have all pro seasons, it kind of overshadow the dud of the Bryce Huff experiment. So,
and the fact they won a Super Bowl,
and of course, Makai Becton was another one too. But yeah,
right.
Of course,
had they not had the success that they did, it becomes more glaring.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I would agree with you on that. If they had an issue, in the playoffs or in the Super Bowl of not being able to get pass rush, but you think about it, they signed him to be a pass rusher after losing Hassan Reddick, and they didn't even activate him for the Super Bowl, and they absolutely were all over Patrick Mahomes. Sack after sack after sack after sack, dominating performance. So it really shows you kind of the type of player, that they want him to be, that unfortunately he wasn't able to be, and younger players behind him were able to step up into roles and take over.
Right.
I said it earlier, they cleared some cap space, $6.4 million with Slay and Bradbury, those money coming off the books and, reverting to the salary cap. I think they have like $26 million of space right now. I know Howie likes to roll over space, but speaking about free agencies, and we were talking last year, free agent of last year that signed that they then traded to Houston, CJGJ, had some comments about Philly, and when Vic said it was a salary cap thing, and I think a lot of it is it's his fourth team and his 14th fourth team in 4 years. Yes, is he a really, good player? He's a good player.
But he's also a locker room cancer. This kind of goes to, or not, I won't say a locker room cancer. I will say he is the kind of player who
staying
is
off social media.
Divisive. He's divisive.
Like he said there was nothing like after he got traded, he was on like I don't know if it was a Twitch thing or whatever. And he was talking about it, about the decision they made to trade him. And he goes, I just trade me somewhere I can, having no issues with it at all. And, saying what they got to do with it. And then posting after Vic made a comment that it was a salary cap thing. And that was just about it. And
a Justin Simmons thing.
Yeah. And then he posted about the Justin Simmons thing. He just wants his boy Simmons. But
which we've been talking about for years. We wouldn't hate it.
Yeah. Last 2 years, we've been kind of saying it, but no, and I wouldn't hate it. A veteran who knows the defense and everything like that. But, CJGJ sometimes needs to just kind of tone down a little bit.
But he can't. And I'll tell you, being a teacher and being, in the baseball world like I am and just being a human being, we live in a world where not enough people get their ass kicked for the things that they say anymore. And I think that's the kind of the situation here where, if you look at the way the world used to work, CJ Gardner-Johnson would be getting his ass kicked for all the things that he spews off at the mouth and the fingertips. He doesn't get his ass kicked enough anymore.
Yeah. And listen, he's, is he, maybe not happy. I don't know. Maybe not happy, not leaving. I don't know what the whole situation is. But again, Eagles weren't going to give him a big contract because Reed's coming up on a deal. Jalen Carter's coming up on a deal. Jordan Davis coming up on a deal. There's a lot of decisions they have to make. And unfortunately, could they have kept him this year and played and then got rid of him? Yes. But maybe they wanted to cut the ties earlier rather than later just because of, it's just maybe what they wanted to do. I don't know. Like, you have to realize, too, this was Vic's first season as defensive coordinator. He's seeing certain players, seeing who potentially fit the best in their roles and stuff like that. So, listen.
And look, he helped us win a Super Bowl. I'm going to be appreciative of that. He helped us get to another one. I'm going to be appreciative of that. Like, it's not that I have any hatred for the guy. He just doesn't fit in what he just didn't fit here.
Yeah.
He's a good player who didn't fit here.
Him, a contract extension, so they weren't going to give that to him. So then, send him off, get what you got out of it, and then, just move on. Unfortunately, again, he won the Super Bowl with them, so he's tied to Philly for the rest of his career. Like, he is a Super Bowl champion with the Eagles. So, there is that. There is a little thing to remember. July 18th, I'm told, is the ring ceremony. So that's where the ring will be unveiled. So I can't wait. There was some talk on X about it being tomorrow on Friday, but I believe that was the old date and they've switched it to the middle of July. So that's just something to keep an eye on, which also another thing to keep an eye on is before the season, I can't wait to see like we talked about, I can't wait to see America's game. So a lot of things still down the pipeline, but one thing I love to see with the OTAs and everything is the attitude of the players. It's about getting better and it's about this season. We're not dwelling and we're not rehashing everything and stuff. And, did they maybe get a little carried away last Super Bowl that they won back in 2017? Maybe because of all the book tours. I don't know if you remember all the different book tours. And
it was also the first one in the organizational history.
Yep. So they learned a little bit from their mistakes.
And I'm gonna continue to throw shade at Doug Peterson here. They didn't win because of extremely good coaching. They won because they caught lightning in a bottle at the right time. That was a team victory, right? This is now an organization. Like, this is what this team does.
There was too much complacency, if you want to call it that. And I don't feel
this team now, the expectation is Super Bowl or bust.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree with you on that.
It's an organizational switch. So, yes, Sirianni got us there, and yes, he helped win it, and yes, the team did this. But now the expectation is, okay, we're going to celebrate it, and now we're going to plan for the next one.
I agree with you. And, it's going to be fun to see this offseason, keep seeing how they're building it, how they're doing it. It's just I like the culture of this team. And again, it's crazy. 5 years ago, when started doing this, I think you came in 2021, right?
No, I think I came in 2020.
Was it late? Yeah, it probably was late 2020.
I want to say it was the summer of 2020, the fall of 2020, somewhere in that range.
So it's funny, like we think about that when we started.
No, you know what?
We sure it wasn't during the year in 2020 or towards the end of the year?
Definitely during the season.
Yeah. It was either during the season.
I remember I was bored all COVID-y, and I started writing like a blog post, and then I found you guys through the world, and then I started commenting, and then all of a sudden I was like, hey, do you want to come on? I was like, okay, cool. And now I'm here. Can't get away from y'all.
I know. It's okay. You love us.
Guys like the mafia.
Yeah. Shh. We don't talk about that.
Every time I try to get out, you pull me back in. No, sorry.
Listen, we're not having any cheesesteak wars, though. But no, like when we think about when everything all started in 2020, when we started this, and the way the franchise was and the way the team was, like it was a pretty dim state, kind of, especially the way that season unfolded. It was such a dim state. You know, you looked and you saw like the talent. They had some talent, but the problem was the bad drafts had really stacked up against them in 2019 and 2020, getting these young players. And then, you know, you get rid of Doug, you get rid of Carson, you're able to start rebuilding. And we have said it. I've said it multiple times. Like I said, they needed to start the next couple of drafts, had to start getting building blocks. And they started doing that. And they did that. They've done that since 2021. And it's crazy how they've built this and how it's evolved and everything. So I'm just excited. I can't wait for this season. It's an exciting time. I do have a couple things that I'm working on for some guests and some different things that we are trying to get done here. So definitely keep an eye on it. Definitely follow the page. So you're getting all the updates. You're getting everything that we're posting, we're releasing. And if we have any news, make sure that you're following and hitting the notification tabs so you get notified when we make posts. So, you know, with that, as we always do, Chip, we always end it with a very happy and very joyful Go Birds.
Go Birds. This is Matt Ware. Hey, for all the Eagle content you need, go follow All About the Birds. They do a damn thing. Check them out.
Hey, Eagles fans, I may be in Tampa, but I know where to find the best Eagles content out there. Check out my friends at All About the Birds.
Philadelphia, what's up? This your boy Freddie Mitchell, a.k.a. Fred X. It's all about the bird.
All birds all the time. All birds all the time.
All About the Birds provides you with weekly analysis, game recaps, informative interviews, and it's all birds all the time.